Today we'll be talking about how diet affects one's posterity, how that affects those who will carry on the next generation. And possibly you've never really thought of things in that way, but if you'll look in your notebook on page 26, you'll see the beginning that says factors affecting posterity. Then I would like us to just skip some things and go to page 36 of your outline and study some of those things that can affect the development and the building up of the brain. You will notice on page 36 a section that says caring for the frontal lobe. Do you see that? Let us just look at these. Number one is to protect the frontal lobe or the brain from injury. And how do we do that? Well, it is I believe one of the important things that we should learn early in life is not to damage the head. Can you think of a way that Americans encourage their young people that would injure their brain? Something that promotes injury to the body? Sports. The pugilistic sports. I don't have anything good that I can say for pugilistic sports. They are war games. Where did war begin? Who instituted war? It was certainly not God, was it? It was Satan that instituted war. And these games, all competitive games, are in a sense a war between two sides. And we talk about sportsmanship in sports, but there is the clearest evidence that sportsmanship is not developed by competitive sports. The whole idea of sportsmanship is not fostered by competitive sports, and we have the clearest evidence on that. And we have international evidence on that too. How people now we're very much aware how the Olympic people, those who we would think would have the very keenest development of sportsmanship, have the very poorest. And they even secretly maim one another and try to do one another in. It's just amazing to me that those things can happen. But of course it does. And of course football and basketball. I remember how amazed I was when I learned that basketball people will shoot a goal, and then if anybody is near them, they come down with the elbows like that so that they can break somebody's nose right next to them, or shoulder, or whatever. And it's of course covered. It looks as if it's an accident, but it was not an accident. They deliberately did it. So I would like, first of all, to tell you, do not let your children nor your grandchildren get into competitive sports. There are many, many kinds of sports that do not require competition, and get them into those. Then the second thing is give it plenty of oxygen. That means fresh air day and night, indoors and out. Watch for pollution of any kind. Then give it good nutrition. Get plenty of sunshine. Sunshine strengthens the body. The brain is an organ of the body. Whatever builds up the rest of the body will build up the brain, and anything that tears down the rest of the body will also tear down the brain. And again, it's amazing to me that people cannot understand that. They think that somehow the brain is protected and we'll be able to think as well and feel as well and react as well and produce as well, whether or not we are having good nutrition. But that simply is not true. We must build up the brain if we are planning to have good function of the mind. and then guard the avenues to the soul. Now, I put here avenues to the brain, but I really mean the avenues to the soul. What are the avenues to the soul? All right, there are very few. There are very few. Our sensory organs, that's the only way that heaven can impress a human being, is by the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, or the touch. There are no other ways. We have no other way that we can gather information from the outside. So anything that we do that alters the brain nerves in any way will make it so that we cannot think so well. Then notice the next one. The Bible builds the brain. The Bible, just as it reads, is to be our guide. Nothing is so calculated to enlarge the mind and strengthen the intellect as the study of the Bible. Then let's take the next one. Oh, by the way, while I'm at this, if you have had a family member, or if you yourself has had any injury to your brain, notice that this is how you can build up your brain. If a person has had a stroke, one of the best things they can do is to commit passages of the Bible to memory. If they're not far enough along in their mental or brain development or healing that they can commit to memory, then they should simply read it again and again. The mind should not be taxed, but simply to read over and over again until it can be committed to memory with no urging of any kind. Then the next frame is no other study will so elevate the soul and give vigor to the faculties. That's also the faculties of the mind, as the study of the living oracles. And then go to page 37, to the next one. The Bible builds the brain. As the mind is brought to the study of God's Word, the understanding will enlarge and the higher powers will develop for the comprehension of high and ennobling truth. Then the next one, the way to maintain your brain. Recent breakthroughs in understanding how the brain works show that our brains can still develop as we mature, and that new brain cells are being created throughout our lives. The key to encouraging the growth is keeping the mind active. Now, one of the best ways that we increase the size of the brain is by increasing the number of connections from one brain cell to another. We actually sprout these connections from one brain cell to another. And as we sprout these connections, that adds some bulk to the brain. Well, that's nice to know, isn't it? That we can actually increase the size of the brain. We can also diminish the size of the brain. A good way to do that is with alcohol. We drink a lot of alcohol, and we can be sure we're going to have some atrophy of the brain or some destruction of portions of the brain. Now let's take the next one. In fact, somebody estimated, I don't know how they did it considering the fact that we've got billions of brain cells, but somebody estimated that every time a person became intoxicated with alcohol or came under the influence of alcohol, they lost 10,000 brain cells. Well, considering the fact that we've got tens of billions of brain cells, a few thousand here and there, that's not very much, is it? But as anyone knows who has ever seen X-rays of the brain of a severe alcoholic, or has ever taken the cranium off the head of a severe alcoholic, we know that a large part of the brain is replaced with fluid. And I remember when I was taking off the first cranium when in my training in pathology of a person who had severe alcoholism, that my instructor who was teaching me how to do that said we were dressed of course in gowns, and I was sitting there and I was just about to pull the calvarium off, and he said, "Now watch your gown." because you're going to have a big flood of fluid when you take the calvarium off. And sure enough, when I pulled it off, the fluid just splashed out, replacing the brain substance. Of course, the skull is the same size. And so when you lose brain cells, you have to replace it with something, and fluid is the thing. So I recommend to you, don't drink. Be a teetotaler. And if anybody asks you anything about why it's amazing to me that if you go to any kind of gathering where there is drinking, unless you have declared yourself as a teetotaler, and even then sometimes you'll be annoyed by people telling you, oh, come on, just have a little drink. Have you ever had that happen to you? Tell them, if anybody ever says that to you, no, I do what my doctor does. And she is a teetotaler. You can say that I'm your doctor if you want to. And it's an excuse that you can know. My doctor is a teetotaler, and she said that I should be too. So, doctor's orders. Okay, brain food. New growth in brain cells and in the connections between the cells, called dendrites and axons, seem to be encouraged, or this growth seems to be encouraged by active experience, continued learning, and interaction with other people. Now, as we get older, we tend to lose interest in a lot of things, so that our interests begin to narrow. To give you an example, when I was a little girl, I remember being interested in word salads. You know what those are? It's just a jumble of words. And I would like to see how many of those I could remember. You know, just look at a group of words and see how many you could remember. And I got so that I could remember quite a number of words in a word salad. As I've gotten older, I have far less interest in word salads than I had when I was a little girl, so I can't remember them as well. It doesn't mean that I'm not as intelligent as I was. I think I'm more so than I was when I was a little girl, but I can't remember those words as well. That's because I don't have as much interest. It doesn't matter to me whether I can remember them or not. And somebody has recently said that the older person who has trouble bringing things up from the memory, and it is true that as we get older we do have more trouble in bringing things up from the memory. It's not wiped out of the memory like it is maybe in Alzheimer's or in alcoholism or a stroke. It is just that it takes a little more time to get to the information. And the reason for that is not because maybe of faulty equipment, but simply that the hard drive is just getting a little overloaded. Well, I like that idea. Sounds better to me than the other. So we'll put it that way. But keep your experience active. Don't rest on your laurels and stop learning something. And it is good from time to time to learn something brand new, something that is not a part of what you have been doing for a long time. You might, somebody who has not done writing might take a course at the local community college on journalism or something of this nature, so that you can keep your mind constantly learning things and be interacting with other people. As they bring things to you, it enlarges your interest. As you learn other people, that also helps you to know what other people are interested in. It says, and they shall see his face. That's the last frame. Revelation 22:4. And that, of course, is we are expecting that we will have his name written in our foreheads. Amen. We can thank the Lord for that, his name. And I like the emphasis that we're having in our evening meetings with words, don't you? And the enlargement of what some of these words mean. And I like the fact that we know that the name means character. We can just move that one out of the way and put this one right up here. So, in the earth made new, we will actually have the character of our Heavenly Father. That's good news, isn't it? So I would like to study with you some things this morning that can injure the mind or make the mind so that it malfunctions and has a greater propensity to become perverted. Now, I mentioned that word the other day, perverted. We have perverted appetites. We have perverted tastes, don't we? Yeah. What is a perverted appetite? Well, one thing is that we even like sugary junk foods. We should really just be nauseated with sugary junk foods, and yet the appetite clamors for these things, doesn't it, once we become accustomed to it. But if you never have any sugary junk foods, your appetite will not be perverted. You will have a natural and normal appetite. It will not be perverted. So you will not like sugary junk things. I remember the story that Dr. Scharfenberg tells about his 17-year-old daughter. When she was just approaching her 17th birthday, for the first time she was separated from her family and went with another family, another physician's family, to Mexico. They thought it would be enlarging to her experience and educational thing. So this 16, almost 17-year-old girl went to Mexico with another doctor's family. And they had also a 16-year-old girl about to be 17. So the two girls were almost the same age. While they were in Mexico, Dr. Scharfenberg's daughter had her 17th birthday. And so the other girl wanted to give her some kind of little gift. So she went down to the store and got some of these mints, you know, the kind of big balls that when you put them in the mouth, they sort of melt in the mouth and sort of collapse. Well, she bought a few of these big balls and took them to the girl whose birthday it was that day. And so the girl looked in the little bag and she said, "What are these?" And she said, "Well, take one in your mouth." And so she said, "Really, these big balls?" He said, "Yes." So she reached in and got one and put it in her mouth, and it went through its collapsing act. And she ran to the door of the motel as fast as she could and spat it out. And she turned around laughing and said, "What kind of joke is this?" She thought that the only thing mint she had ever tasted was toothpaste. She didn't know it was candy. And so she thought it was some kind of toothpaste that was made in some kind of strange form. Was her appetite perverted for this kind of sweets? No. She had never tasted that before because Dr. Scharfenberg's family didn't eat sugary junk foods. And they had always reared their children very carefully. So they had never had any kind of candy. They didn't buy it. It was not a part of what was ever done in their home. So she was unacquainted with it. She did not have a perverted appetite. But we can damage our brains by what we feed it. Notice this. It is as important what we feed our brains as what we feed our bodies. The frontal lobe is the crown of the brain, and it's important for us to recognize that we must protect this frontal lobe. It is where personality resides. It is also where spirituality resides. The comparative size of the frontal lobes, and you'll have to look for these in your notes, they're scattered a little bit. Notice that the percentage of a cat's body is only 3.5% frontal lobe, and of a little dog it's 7%, and of a little monkey, which you see there in that little tree, is 17%. But a man's frontal lobe is 33%. And somebody said that a woman's was just a little bit more than that. The value of protecting the frontal lobe: improve performance in school and work, develop better social skills, and become more responsible parents and workers. That is the value of the frontal lobe. The effects of frontal lobe damage of a child. Now this came from a medical journal. Temper outbursts when frustrated, verbally and physically abusive in an abrupt, unpredictable, but very short-lived pattern. Sexually promiscuous from early teens. no sustained relationships or friendships, intermittent heavy user of drugs or alcohol. And some of these with frontal lobe damage will be very impulsive, even to the point of committing suicide repeatedly, or attempts at it. Frontal lobe diseases, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorders such as mania, appetite increase, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, and it may be recognized early in life as daredevil behavior. They seem to have no fear of danger, but will rush pell-mell into any kind of situation, whether it might result in serious injury or pain to their physical bodies. Compromised frontal lobes may show memory impairment, especially the short-term memory. You tell a child who has frontal lobe impairment to do something, and before they can get there, they have had their attention directed elsewhere and totally forgotten what you said. You said, do you remember what I sent you for? No, they don't. They can't remember at all. Of course, many children are very distractible. It may be that they have a frontal lobe problem, or it may be that they have a dietary problem. Many compromised frontal lobes will make the child live in a fantasy land and be emotionally unstable. They may lack initiative. They could study their books, but they know that there are some advantages from studying, but who really cares? Not me, is their attitude. Cares little for self. They may be the life of the party, and they don't think about anything other than the here and now. Some drugs can damage the frontal lobe. Illicit drugs, certain prescription drugs. And then the social drugs, such as alcohol, caffeine, and nicotine. Do you think of caffeine and nicotine as drugs? They truly are. They are drugs that we administer to people for certain things. Other drugs that affect the mind: asthma medications, blood pressure medications, tranquilizers and sleeping pills, anti-ulcer pills, and some of the anti-inflammatories like the NSAIDs and steroids. Some hormones can affect the brain in a strange way. Pain relievers, cold and allergy medications such as antihistamines and decongestants. Then coffee and mental problems are multitudinous. And I wish we had time really to go over a number of these and of other things that affect the body and the mind and the immune system and the skin and the reproductive organs and the digestive tract and the liver, the adrenals, you name it. And caffeine will have, or coffee, tea, colas, and chocolate will have an adverse effect on it in the body. And if you'd like to get a pretty good summary of it, you can get our little book called Poison with a capital C, which deals with all of these drinks. But here you will notice depression, coping problems, or the ability to cope with problems, insomnia. All of these are intensified by the greater the number of drinks that you take per day with coffee. Now here are some ways that coffee and tea and colas will affect the brain. They produce dependence. That means a person is not self-reliant. What things they should be able to do for themselves, they are quite willing to depend on someone else for. They may cause drug withdrawal symptoms. If you don't take your, quote, fix, you will get withdrawal. What is the commonest withdrawal symptom of caffeine? Headaches, that's right. And often when people come here, they have no idea that we don't have coffee vending machines here. But when they come and they don't find any, they aren't prepared, and maybe they flew in and don't have a car that they could go to get some, and so they're having this terrific headache, and they don't think about that it might be that they haven't had their coffee, and they wonder about the bed, the pillow, the diet, the weather, the humidity. They wonder about all sorts of things, and sometimes we do too, because we might not even think about that it might be a coffee withdrawal. But then often we have, through the years, we have come to focus on that more. It is a perverted appetite that makes us take coffee, tea, colas, and chocolate. Isn't it? I remember when I was a little girl, the first time I ever took some. I went to my grandparents' house, and they both used coffee. And went there at breakfast time, and they lived next door to us, but I rarely went there at breakfast time. But this time I did, and they were drinking coffee. And I wanted to know, what's that? So my grandmother poured a little coffee in a cup and then put a lot of milk with it and stirred in some sugar. Oh, it was good. But I looked at hers and I said, well, Grandma, you aren't using yours like I am. Yours is black, and mine is milky, chocolate colored. What's the difference? She said, well, you wouldn't like mine. I said, I think I would. So she got a spoon, and she took a little of hers out and let me taste of it. And, oh, it was not good at all. And I wondered, how could anybody ever take that stuff? You have to teach yourself to like it, don't you? It's not natural for us to like coffee. It's a perverted appetite that will call for coffee. And then the inflamed nerves that we get from coffee. Does that feel good? No, not really. It really doesn't feel good. It makes us tense and nervous. And that really doesn't feel good, but we become so accustomed to it that we think it feels good. And we think that we don't like it if we don't have it. And some of you may have had an experience with coffee, tea, colas, or chocolate. And you know what I'm talking about. But I remember when I decided that I was going to quit drinking coffee, I started by just taking half a cup. Do you know what I put the rest of it, fill the rest of the cup up with? Half and half. And I thought I was doing myself a favor. But it was not a favor, it was just another perversion. But little by little, I weaned myself off coffee, and I guess it's been close to 30 years since I've had a cup of coffee. And I don't expect to ever take it again, because I know I might take it as a medicine. It can be used as a medicine. There's several things. It has an astringent quality about it, so if you have nausea and vomiting, it will help you if you don't have something that's better. There are many better things, but that could help you a little bit. And if you have an irritated place on the skin, you can make a poultice with it, so don't throw it away if you've got some. Keep it in the medicine cabinet to use as poultices when somebody has some kind of dermatitis. It might help them with that. Just don't take it internally unless you take it by the spoonful, not by the cupsful. Okay? It can worsen psychiatric illnesses. Now, a big medical journal came out with a principal psychiatric medical journal, came out a few years back with an article that said that at least 10,000 people were incarcerated in medical institutions in the United States today for no other reason than that they drank caffeinated beverages. Well, I thought that would be the end of all caffeinated beverages among psychiatric patients. It wasn't long after that, maybe 2 or 3 months after that big article came out, and there was even a flurry in the newspaper about it. It wasn't long after that a patient of mine who was mentally ill, I took care of her physical needs, but one of the local psychiatrists took care of her emotional and mental problems. And I was sent a message by this lady to come to a mental hospital to see her, that she had a physical problem she wanted me to see her about. And she knew that I was in the Chattanooga area from time to time, and she was hospitalized in a little mental institution close to Chattanooga called Moccasin Bend Hospital. So I went out to the hospital one time when I was there and asked if I could see her. It had 5 stories, the little hospital did. So I went in on the ground floor, and I said, I'd like to see so-and-so. And so the receptionist said, fine, doctor, I'll make arrangements for you to go up and see her there. And would you like to have a seat over here? You can take some coffee there if you would like. And I said, no, thank you. So then presently an orderly came and said, you can come with me and I'll show you where to go. So he took me back, and when we got to the end of the corridor, there was a locked door. I must have done something, did I? And at any rate, the orderly took out his big set of keys, and he found that he did not have the key for that. So he said, well, doctor, you sit right here, and here's a coffee urn. You can have some coffee if you'd like. And I said, no, thank you. So presently he came back and opened the door, and we took the elevator and went up. And so when we got up to the 5th floor, which is where she was, we got off the elevator, and there was a little waiting area there. And he said, here, doctor, you sit right over here, and I will let them know that you're here, and here's some coffee. You can have some coffee. I said, no, thank you. So pretty soon I got into her ward, which was also locked, and the nurse said, here, doctor, you just sit right over here, and I'll go and get the patient and bring him down. And there's some coffee there. 5 times I had the opportunity to drink coffee before I saw my patient. I thought, well, have they not heard? Do they not know that coffee is not good for these people in here? I almost said to the nurse when she, at the 5th time, no, I'm afraid I might wind up here. 10,000 people in hospitals today. Let us not take these drinks. They are not good for us. And they do lower the threshold for a number of things, such as the ability to sleep. Sleep is a gift, isn't it? What does the Bible say about that? He giveth his beloved sleep. It is a gift from heaven. Sleep is a gift. And so we can interfere with this gift from heaven by our use of these caffeinated beverages. Okay. Notice the next to the last one. It can have spiritual and social impact. It can make people irritable. Have you ever pulled up to a traffic light and you're sitting there and the traffic light turns green, and just for a split second you take a little while to get your foot off the brake and onto the accelerator, and what happens from the car behind you? Honk! If it's very insistent and impatient, you know what I say? Coffee. Coffee nerves. That's what caused that blast on the horn. Now, let's say you're sitting behind and somebody sits through a traffic light. What should you do? You should say, don't honk. No matter how urgent your mission may be, unless he sits through the second one, just say, I forgive you, sir or ma'am. I forgive you for sitting through, for making me have to sit through this light. And forgive them right on the spot. It is good for your nerves. It is good for your patience to forgive people when you're on the highway. When somebody threatens to pull into your lane, say to them, I forgive you for doing that. Say it mildly. Don't get angry with people. Road rage is a new syndrome. We should not become involved in it, because road rage can lead to serious accidents, and does every day. Road rage leads to serious accidents and murder on the highways. And if you once allow yourself to begin to get irritated, it's like a waterfall, going over a waterfall. You can't stop yourself. You just fall off in a fit of anger. And so you must not even allow the very approach of that. And coffee makes you more likely to become involved in that. I wish we had time to spend on each one of those a lot of time, but we don't. Let's go on to another one, and that's sugar and the frontal lobe. What is housed in the frontal lobe? Personality and character and spirituality. All of these precious functions are in large degree there. Of course, they are also scattered everywhere in the brain, but to a large degree in the frontal lobes. A large amount of sugar in the diet has been demonstrated to impair frontal lobe functions in school-aged children. This is scientifically proven. Then another thing, meat and intelligence, or the frontal lobe. Eating much flesh will diminish the intellectual activity. Students would accomplish much more in their studies if they never tasted meat. When the animal part of the human nature is strengthened by meat eating, the intellectual power diminishes proportionately. The Bible speaks about the difference about the digestive tract, that some people are ready for meat and some people are ready for milk. Human beings, for the most part, have a digestive tract that is not ready for these more difficult to digest and assimilate and handle foods, such as all animal products. And in our day, it is more these problems with the intelligence and animal proteins is multiplied by the fact that we also have the diseases that are in animals that can affect human beings as well. Now, the maternal influence on our intelligence, maternal drug use, poor prenatal nutrition, and of course her use of coffee, tea, and alcohol. I remember one time when I was in medical school, this was back in the 50s, we should have known, I did, and I thought everybody did, that alcohol should not be taken during pregnancy. But one of the senior medical students, when I was also a senior medical student, his wife was pregnant. This was their first child, and they were in their 30s, and there was a great premium on this baby. So she didn't want to gain weight. So you know what she did to keep from gaining weight? She took Scotch liquor, because she said that it dulled her appetite and made it so she didn't want to eat so much. And I remember thinking as she was relating this, I would think it'd be better to gain a lot of weight than to drink that alcohol. And that was before I knew anything at all about healthful living. All I knew about was disease cure, but I knew that was not good for the developing baby. So we need to be very careful about what the diet is of the mother. What does a mother need before the birth of the baby? She needs good food, fresh air, sunshine, exercise, rest. She needs all of those things. Does she need alcohol, tobacco, coffee? Somebody said no way, and that's exactly what I think too. Exposure to lead, we need to be very careful for mothers with that, and a low IQ in the mother. Do you know that the mother's low IQ is more likely to be transmitted to the child than the father's low IQ? Yes, but the Lord is merciful. A low IQ in either tends to be sort of diluted in the offspring, so that the offspring are more likely to have a higher IQ than the low IQ of the parents. If the parents both have a low IQ, the offspring are likely to have an IQ a little higher than the parents. But same thing is true on the other side. Very intelligent parents are likely to have a little less intelligent parents. So there's sort of an equalizing that goes on in the offspring, interestingly enough, so that apparently the Lord wants us to be all on about an equal. Seems like it, doesn't it? I'm thankful to the Lord that He has made us that way, because some people who are very highly intelligent tend to have some mental quirks. Have you noticed that? As well as people who have very low intelligence. They are also subject to the same thing. And then an inconsistent parent. That can be either one, but it's especially the mother. What does it mean, inconsistent? That her discipline is on again, off again. On again, off again. She's very intense in her discipline one day, and the next day could care less. Okay. Now, I'd like us to spend a few minutes talking about career criminals and how we can understand how our children need not get into that, or how we can recognize that a child is likely to get into a delinquent situation in teenage years or at any time in future life. There are signs that are recognizable early, and let's just start by considering some of the things written in Science News, May the 1st, 1993. Delinquent Developments is the name of the article. It was the lead article in that particular journal. Career criminals and temporary lawbreakers may cross paths as teenagers. Let's see how that can be. Predictory, one is a troubled youth. The next is the timing of puberty and certain personality traits such as independence. Now, we've studied one thing already that can make a person dependent. Dependency, extreme dependency, as well as independence, can both be a problem with the troubled youth. Being withdrawn, they spend a lot of time in their room. If you take a walk with your family, they walk way out ahead or way back behind. If you have a family gathering and everybody is sitting in the living room talking, this one will be off by themselves, maybe in the kitchen or somewhere else playing by themselves. And then a lack of respect for authority. That's a sign. That's a sign of a troubled youth. And then a thing that we can know will increase one's likelihood of having some delinquency in one's future is the social world of high schools today. What is the social world like? Well, it is not good, as you know. And someone wrote up the differences in the misbehaviors of 50 years ago or even 20 years ago and the misbehaviors of today. I remember for my age it was something like talking out loud or running in the halls or even talking at all in the classroom, just even whispering. That was misbehavior. The spitballs, that was the very epitome of misbehavior in the classroom. Chewing gum, that was very much forbidden. You did not do that, and you got demerits. Did you do that? But now it's such as killing the neighbor's animals, pets, or breaking in a locked room, or breaking out the windows in the library, or whatever. Those are the misbehaviors of today. Much more serious things, a whole different category of things now in our day. Fighting used to be a big thing, but fist fighting used to be a big thing, but now it's fighting with guns or fighting with knives or bombs. Yeah, it's different now. The type of fighting was different now. Son, I'm sorry I don't have time to stop. I've got far more than I'm going to be able to cover. Would you write it down? I do want your question. Please do.
My question was saying to the teenagers, most of them, I said to them, what you watch is what you are. I mean, not necessarily what you are, but what you watch is what you're going to do.
All right.
On TV, on the television, because they see so many things on television.
Yes.
They tell their parents, and they'll come to their house and they'll see, this is what you guys watch, and they'll show me all the videos, and so I can't even watch any of them.
Yeah.
It's all violence and all kinds of stuff.
I hope you all saw that. Make sure I get the words right. What you watch is what you are.
No, what you watch is what you may become. What they do because
what you watch is what you do.
See, thought, do.
See, thought, do. It's pretty important, isn't it? Now I have a whole set on this computer about TV and competitive games and music that I'm not going to get to, but you've got them in your notes there, and that will help you. I'm not going to get to comment on them, but it's a part of this talk today. But I want you to understand that TV, and that's not the only thing that children watch today. They have all sorts of things to watch and to read and to billboards and whatever, and Nintendo and computer games. It is something to weep about what children have available to them today to look at and see and watch, see, thought, and do. See, thought, and do. I like that. Okay. Next one. The unstructured home life. I am very concerned about the unstructured home life in families today. When I grew up, almost everything that was done in my family was done as a family. When we went to town, everybody went to town. When we went to the school for some kind of special school function, everybody went to town. In my particular family, we all went to the same school. My mother taught there. And my father, when we got big enough we had to be bused to school. When we got big enough to ride the school bus, my father asked to be the school bus driver. So we got on his bus and went to the school where my mother was a teacher. My mother never was my teacher, but she taught in that same school and was always there and I knew that come lunchtime and the teachers were all together that my mother was going to hear what my teacher said about what I was doing. So it had a restraining influence on mischievous behavior that I might get into. We don't have that kind of thing now. It's you send them off and they go down to the corner somewhere and they get on a bus and you don't know even who is on there or who is driving. Or, you know nothing about it. If you are in a position where you can and you have children, move to the country. Move to the country. It is important for you to do so. Unstructured home life, people, latchkey children, they come home and they know how to get in and so they let themselves in and they go in and they eat. They watch TV, they call their friends, they invite their friends over. All of these things are independent, make independent children who have a lack of respect for authority. Now the child may be neglected or may be abused. And single parents, and we're having a plethora of single parents today. Either there was never a father involved or the mother and the father have split up, and now there's only one parent involved. Children, by divine appointment, need a father and a mother. They need this. It's a part of their character development. It's a part of their understanding of who they are. Now, in 1880, the average age of puberty in the United States was 16.2 years. Today, if a little girl has not started her periods by the age of 13 or 14, mother brings her to see me, worried. What is wrong with my daughter? And I say, nothing, I trust. And especially is that the case if she's been very healthy, if a family have been very health conscious. Her puberty is going to be delayed a long time. And the same thing is true with little boys. We had a woman who became a vegetarian, then went to our health food store a lot, and she had 2 children. Her husband was a colonel out at Fort Benning, and when the children were small, he was very happy. He'd read all about the vegetarian routines. So he was very happy that his wife was interested in vegetarianism and was doing vegetarian cookery at home, and so he was very happy about that until his son became 14, and his son was still this puny little runt about like this, who could not be in the, what do they call them, the junior league, is that it? Or These baseball, isn't that called the junior? Oh, that's not junior league. That's Little League. Yeah, his son didn't have these muscles like others in his school who were age 14, so he could not be a part of Little League. He didn't like that. When he got to be 15 and he was only an inch taller, he was really very disappointed. And he and his wife had an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation over this. She called me one day crying. Is there something that we can... that my husband says that I have ruined our son, that he's always going to be this little runt, and that we've just done the very wrong thing. Well, it was not very long after she called me that he was transferred to, I believe, someplace in Oklahoma. And after they'd been there for 2 or 3 years, she called me one day and asked if I would, she was in a class at the University of Oklahoma there, and if I would come and have a lecture for her class in nutrition. She talked with a teacher and everything, and so I went. Didn't know where they lived, but we were to go to their house first before we went to the university. So I had a team, and we looked for the house and didn't know exactly which one it was. So I thought, well, I'll go up to the house and knock on the door and see if this is the house. Maybe if there's somebody there, there'll be somebody who will know me. So I went up there and knocked on the door, and pretty soon the door opened quickly, and I looked up like this, and he said, "Oh, hello, Dr. Thrash." And I said, "Hello, you know me?" He said, "Oh, yes, I'm Randy," or whatever his name was. "You're Randy?" He was just late in getting his growth spurt. This is a characteristic of vegetarian children. They are slower in getting their growth spurt than other children. That's a great shame, isn't it? Well, let's go on with this. Let's go on with this. In 1990, the average age of menarche in the United States was 11.6 years. Now, that was in 1990. 10 years have gone by. We have lopped another 7 months off the generation age of girls, so that now it's 10.9 years, and no change in this trend in sight. It looks as if we are going to lop 6 more months every decade. That's what we've done since 1880 to 1990. Every decade, we've chopped 6 months off the generation age, just like that. And still going. We aren't stopping at all. Now, what does that do? Well, the timing of puberty. Later menstruating girls, 15 or plus years, tend to avoid all delinquency. Keep that in mind. If they begin periods by age 12, there was more stealing, alcohol, drugs, fights, and other antisocial things. If they bite and hit at 4, they're likely to shoplift and skip school at 10, sell drugs and steal cars at 16, rob and rape at 22, and embezzle and abuse their spouse at 30. These are proven facts. And so we need to take care of our children. Now, Science News said that improved nutrition and health care have lowered the age of puberty. Now, here is what this improved nutrition and health care has done. Here are the problems of teenagers today. Increased delinquency, unmarried sex, unwed pregnancy, depression, generation gap, eating disorders, and other teen problems. These were all listed in the article in Science News. And that down below is what I say. It's not improved. This diet results in social problems. Although Science News said it was improved nutrition and improved medical care. It isn't improved, is it? Anything that will result in this kind of thing is not improved. It's a great step backward. Now, some precursors to delinquency. The diet is the number one thing. This urges a quick menarche. And I wish I had time to go into more of what happens when the puberty is early. But the diet is one thing. Then another thing, some other precursors, is an unstructured home life. And then some others are the maternal influence. Some of the things that we have already studied. And then the fourth precursor is that of maladjustment. Now, what is maladjustment? Well, frontal lobe damage to a newborn. And what damages the frontal lobe? Well, it can be a birth accident, that is true. It can be a low maternal IQ, but it can also be all of those other things that we mentioned, the sugar, the meat, the coffee and tea and colas and so forth. These all damage the frontal lobe. And you can see here some of the things as this particular child in the report that was given in the medical journal, as she developed, the child with frontal lobe damage as a newborn, she did not respond to parental discipline. She always sought gratification of her immediate needs without regard to the future or without regard for anyone around her. She never developed adequate friendships, and she blamed her difficulties on others. Now here is a typical teenage diet, and maybe that will relate to some of you. That will talk to some of you. Sorry?
Pizza is missing.
Oh, pizza is missing, isn't it? This was actually a part of a study that was done in California, and here are the things that they found as a part of that. All right. Well, I hope that the way that we live can be seen to involve not only our characters as I presented yesterday, but to involve the next generation. We want to pay attention to these things. There's a lot of medical research today showing the influence of these things on posterity, and slow down the maturation and growth of our children, and stop the force feeding that we're doing and the giving of and the making of perverted appetites. Let us keep our children with pure appetites, the kind that the Lord gave us.
You have been listening to another special American Christian Ministries presentation. This is a digital recording for optimum sound quality. International copyright, all rights reserved. To order a copy of this or other presentations, or for a free catalog, please call toll-free 800-233-4450. International calls dial 717-652-7000. You may also order from our secure website at www.americanchristianministry.org. There you will discover the largest selection of authentic Adventist preaching available. You can trust ACM. There's no compromise here. If American Christian Ministries has been a blessing to you, why not take a moment just now and send us a note or an email with your testimony? We'll share it with the speakers and volunteer workers to encourage you. Your prayers and continued financial support are very important to ensure the continuation of this ministry as we help prepare America and the world to meet Jesus Christ. He is coming soon.